Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Backstage Spotlight. Today with me, I have Richard Carson. Hello.
Hello, hello, lovely to be here.
Lovely to meet you too. How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay, thank you. Yeah, we've just had a couple of days off from the show, so I'd like to say I'm rested, but I was really ill the past couple of days, so I'm kind of a
Oh,
little bit on the mend, should we say?
oh, what a shame. We'll get well soon.
Yes.
Hopefully, it won't be too long till you're back to yourself.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Would you like to explain to everyone what show you're doing at the moment and who you're playing?
I'm currently in a show called Scissorhands, which is at the Southwark Playhouse Elephant, and I am playing Jim in the show. So if anyone is familiar with the film, it's the boyfriend of Winona Ryder, and he's quite and it has quite extreme views, shall we say, in relation to the show. He's definitely the antagonist of the piece, but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Great. For those who haven't seen the film, do you want to explain the story in a nutshell without giving too much away?
Okay. So this is a musical parody of the film and of the story. It's a story of acceptance and a story of love, and it's about this, I guess, it's Scissorhands has been made, so I don't know whether I sort of call them a creature, an entity. They've been made by a person called the inventor, and basically created from junk parts, and has become this living being, and enters a community of very caricature characters, very over the top characters, but it definitely has a connection with current issues, I think, as well, with people being not being accepted because they're maybe different to what people are used to. And it's the story of Scissorhands making their way through the community, and yeah, how they are portrayed by the community itself.
Great. So obviously you're in the show now. How has the audience
Yep.
response been so far?
Audience response has been very positive, thankfully. I think it's a show um, that oozes love and oozes a party atmosphere. I think there's a
Nice.
lot of the good thing about this show is that even if you don't know the story of Scissorhands, you can come and listen to incredible vocalists and incredible music. It's kind of halfway between a rock concert and a musical. So
Love
even
that.
so, the band are fantastic, and the singers are incredible. I'm not just bigging myself; I'm bigging the whole cast are fantastic. And it's just yeah, it's just a real party. Definitely come along with friends, have some drinks, and just expect a fun night out.
Oh, great. So
Yeah.
tell me about your track personally. Is it a busy track? Are you on and off quite a lot?
So Jim isn't actually in the show that much. So being the antagonist, I don't mind necessarily kind of having a little bit off stage and a little bit of breathing time.
Yes.
It's in a very selfish way. It's quite a thankless show for me in that it's a very uplifting show for everyone, but because the antagonist, everyone's got to have. I guess it's sort of like a funny one where to bring everyone together, everyone's got to have a common enemy. That's sort of a very common way of looking at it, right? And for this show to be so accepting and vibrant, everyone's got to sort of rally against one person, and that's me. And so actually, I don't have heaps to do in the show, but I'm also resident director. So
Oh,
what that means
fantastic.
also now is that I am, because the director has gone back to the US. Now I'm kind of running the show, I guess. In a it sounds really bizarre talk speaking that out loud. But yeah, between myself and the musical director and the dance captain now, it's our responsibility to maintain that this show stays high quality and doesn't lose any of its color, and yeah, just keep it fresh for also for the cast too. So
Yeah.
actually, for my creative brain, this is definitely the best thing for me. I really enjoy this new responsibility.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Can you
Mhm.
talk to us about the rehearsal process for this show? How did it sort of play out?
So we had it was a 3 week. Yeah, it was a three. It was actually a little bit more than 3 weeks in a rehearsal venue, and we Sorry, I don't know if that's there's someone hoovering, unfortunately.
No, all good.
That It was 3 weeks at a place down in South London, and because we had a couple of people in the cast that came over from the US, there was there's 11 people in the cast in total, and there are three people from the US. So we had to kind of move super quick to be able to catch up to what they already knew.
Yeah.
So we moved very, very quickly, but because a lot of the songs are already songs that we know, pop songs and things like that, it didn't take too long for us to learn. That is also alongside such amazing creatives that they were able to just push us so quickly. And he kept using this phrase called a lightning in a bottle, where we have everyone has just such amazing energy, and then we just needed that creative boost just to be able to let everyone flourish. So we've been very, very lucky that even though it's short, we were able to thrive in that time.
Nice. Tell me a bit more about your role as resident director. What are your responsibilities at the moment to maintain the show?
Right. So the director has literally just left. So he left on actually leaves today, but we actually last saw him on Sunday. So there's about 2 days off. That was essentially now he's gone. That then now I've got to rehearse the covers into the show.
Yes.
So there's a cover for every one of the roles, and we're not exactly lucky with heaps of covers. So we have actually people covering multiple roles.
Wow.
So now it's my responsibility to get those up to scratch and make sure that they all know exactly what they've got to do should they be thrown on in such a short period of time, a short show process. Hopefully, touch wood, people shouldn't have to go on too much, but everyone's got to be prepared for that. So now it's going to be a case of also noting the show, making sure that people are remembering the notes that we came in with rehearsals,
Yes.
and yeah, just from a general day-to-day management point of view, now that's much more in my pocket. Yeah.
Great. How long is the show running for?
So the show is running until March the 29th. Yes, March the 29th. So
Great.
we have about 8 weeks, I think. Maybe a little less than, maybe 7 weeks now. So yeah, we're kind of everything's done. Press night's done. Cover rehearsals beginning today. So after this interview, I start cover rehearsals with everyone, and yeah, and then we'll run until 29th of March, and then we shall see what future life there is for Scissorhands.
For sure. So I'd love to know about your audition experience. What is the
Mhm.
process in between you getting material and the audition? How do you prepare?
So I actually didn't know too much about this show before I got my audition, but I was given this audition through from my agent that came in and said, "Oh, well, you're in for this show." So I watched a couple of YouTube clips and things like that just to try and get an idea of the life of the show. I didn't really know too much about the role that I was in for either because I have to say that I hadn't actually seen the movie, and I don't know how controversial that kind of might be. So it's such a cult classic that maybe me not watching it is quite. I may be on my own in that, but
You're not on your own
I
because I haven't seen it.
okay. I don't feel so bad now. Right. Okay. So yeah, I looked at all the lines that I got given. So I got given two scenes.
Yes.
Yeah, two scenes, and I got given a song. So originally, the song that I was supposed to sing was "Fast Car" by Tracy Chapman,
Yes.
the pop song. But then, in amongst the rehearsals, that's been changed. I actually don't know whether it was the right thing or whether they just changed it because they found a better song. But now I sing a song called "Life Is a Highway" by Rascal Flatts,
Life is
which is
a highway.
that's the one. That's the one. That's actually how I sound singing it too, actually.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I should actually just come and be the resident director and
I think
cover
you should.
everyone.
Yeah, so that's the song that I sing in it now. But in the actual audition, I sang Fast Car, and so yeah, then I kind of spoke to the reader and very much did my lines with them. I did a dance call as well, which in that dance call it was. I don't feel so bad saying this because I end up getting it, and it turned out okay. But it's the closest I ever came to walking out of a dance audition,
Mm.
only because I felt so incredibly out of my depth. And I don't know whether that's
Oh,
necessarily a confidence thing or I don't know. I just felt uncomfortable. It was really intense dance, and I was standing in the hallway ready to go in for my dance audition, and the runner came out and said to us, "Look, if there's any advice I could give to all of you, think hips, think sass, think like slay." All these words, that as a straight white guy is, always in my back
Bit
pocket.
daunting.
Yeah, and I just kind of like went, okay, I don't know. I'm really gonna have to kind of go out of my comfort zone here. And we were dancing originally to a song, "Born This Way," which you know from
Lady
Lady
Gaga.
Gaga,
Yeah.
and that was originally in the show as well, but it's not actually in the show anymore. And it was very uh not unique. It was very commercial. It was very
Yeah.
commercial, I think, and
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
how I've originally what I'm comfortable dancing with. So I
Yeah.
just felt very much out of my comfort zone, but I stuck around, and there was one moment in the actual audition that I said, "Could you just go over everything again for me, for the movers in the room?"
Yeah.
And the choreographer Alexandra, she very much empowered me and was like, "You need to stop thinking that you're a mover, you're a dancer." And that kind of stuck with me because I was like, "Okay, right, I need to pick myself up here and bring it." And thankfully, actually, that's when speaking to the director, he said that it was in that moment, me speaking up and asking, and then that shift that went very much in my favor for me getting the job, because
Great.
I seemed like I was quite malleable to work with, and yeah, everything kind of went in my favor. Then I had my singing recall later on the next day, and that's when I really feel comfortable, because I do feel comfortable singing and acting. That's more my forte, and so yeah, everything just kind of decided to go in the right direction.
Yes, that's fantastic. How did you
Yeah.
feel when you got the call to say that they wanted you to be in the show?
It's always nice to get offered a job. When I get that phone call from my agent and he says, you got it. But with this one in particular, I was pleasantly surprised. It kind of came to a point where I was like, okay, right, let me look into it a little bit more, because again, I didn't really know too much about the show.
Sure.
But I didn't immediately say to him, yes, absolutely, I want to do this. And that's nothing against the show. It's just that I felt quite uneducated about it, actually.
Yeah.
And so after doing a little bit more research and figuring out that, this is going to be quite a fun show to do, a lot of my previous credits have been very serious acting, PTSD, trauma
Oh dear.
infused, characters.
For those who are listening, do you want to say a few credits that you've done in the past?
Okay, yeah. So I very more recently, actually, not to sort of stretch back in my CV, but I was in Les Mis, where I
Yeah.
was covering Javert. So that he kills himself in that show,
Quite
and
dark.
then yeah, very dark, and then Maxim de Winter in Rebecca, who also has a lot of PTSD about his ex-wife and has a big confession where he breaks. It's basically called the breakdown
Gosh,
in
yeah.
that. So so that was always hard to kind of go through. And then also I just did a show in China called Lady M,
Wow.
which is the story of Macbeth. But I was playing Macduff, and Macduff loses his wife and then goes on this vengeful arc. So again, it's not exactly all puppies and smiles.
Rainbows and yeah,
Yeah,
sunshine.
yeah,
Wow, so what a
it was all very
contrast.
difficult. Yeah, so this I was just like, you know what, this is now seems a little bit more carefree. I can go in, have some fun, sing songs that people
Yes.
know, and yeah, just be in a room that's a bit more about love and happiness, I guess. And so yeah, then from that point forward, I was excited to go ahead with it.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, it sounds like such an upbeat show. What do you think the future of Scissorhands the musical could be?
I think there is a bright future for this show. I think it needs to find its niche in whereabouts it fits in London. Because I don't think it's going to be, hey, this is transferring to the Palladium. I don't think it's that kind of show. I think it
Yeah.
needs. I think it would be in a venue. So this has 300 seats
Yeah, it's nice and
into the
cozy.
Playhouse. Yeah. So I think this kind of intimate venue is something that really excels this
Yeah.
show and really catalyzes the reactions that this show needs.
Yeah.
So because there's a lot of audience interaction and little moments where it's immersive, where we're in amongst the seats and walking up and down the stairs and in the balcony, and
Yes.
so it needs a place like that. But in the US, it worked in a bar actually
Oh,
called
wow.
it was in the Bourbon Room, which is where Rock of Ages was over there in LA.
Oh wow,
And it
yeah.
was also in a place before that called Rockwell, which again was a bar. So this would be 60 to 150 people kind of thing.
Yeah, great.
And
Yeah.
people could also maybe like have drinks at the same time, and it'd be a little bit
Nice.
more going in amongst the tables. So if there was a venue like that in London as well, I think this is the kind of show that would just run and run and run.
Take off. Yeah.
Yeah, how we have something like excuse me, like Choir of Man.
I was just
Uh
thinking the arts theatre. It would be
yeah,
perfect in there.
yeah, exactly. I think somewhere like that would be really great for this. And so I think there is a life for this show afterwards. It's just finding the where. It needs to be strategic about where it goes.
Yeah, kick Choir of Man out and you're sorted.
I actually know quite a lot of people that work over there, so I'll just be like, "Hey guys, maybe you've had your time there now. Do you mind if we switch it up?" Um, yeah, yeah. So hopefully something like that would excel this production.
Definitely. So, talking now about you as a performer, where do you see yourself in the future? What would be like a dream job? And it doesn't even have to be stage, it could be, screen, even more on the technical side of things like directing, because I know that you're resident
Uh-huh.
director here. So, what would you like to do?
I think that's an interesting question and something that I still keep asking myself now because my dream always, ever since that I went to college, was to do Les Mis.
So,
And
tick that one.
and I ticked it. Yeah, it did take a little while, but everything else, all the other jobs that I've done beforehand, even though I've loved doing them, have always been a little bit of a byproduct or a happy accident because I didn't get Les Mis or it didn't work out with timing with Les Mis or anything like that. So that was always the show that I wanted.
Yeah.
And then ever since I did Les Mis, I kind of had a bit of an identity crisis where I was like, I don't know what I want to do now. There's no other dream. Like, what's
Yeah.
next? I think I would love to do Phantom. That would be a show
Yes.
that I'd love to do one day because
As the Phantom himself, or
well, I think there's something. I think that's a role I'd love to do, but I'm also
yes.
I'm not naive enough to think that I don't think I'm going to necessarily play the role itself. I'd be fine to cover it. Cameron's. I've worked for Cameron's quite a few times now with Miss Saigon and also with Les Mis. And
Yes.
so I'd love to tick off that trilogy of the
Yes,
three
like
kind
a
of Cameron
triple
shows.
bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd love to kind of have that, but I also know that me wanting the role of Phantom is probably a
Who
far off
knows?
dream. Who
The
knows?
world
Who
is
knows?
your
But I
oyster.
yes, but maybe I'd love to do that. But then also now being a resident director here with this, I hope that this can also be a stepping stone for other projects that I can be resident director on because I love this feeling of creatively adding to this show, but
Yeah.
also it takes a particular person to be able to be a good resident director. I
Yeah.
don't feel like I
Big
want to be a
responsibility.
yeah. I don't feel like I want to be a director in that I direct something
Yeah.
because I don't feel creatively a spark. It doesn't create that spark for me really.
Mm.
Whereas being a caretaker of a show,
Yeah, it's
I'm fine
different.
with. Yeah,
Yeah.
I absolutely don't mind, and I can look at it from the eyes of an actor and say, hey, this line that you're saying here is just not really hitting. It doesn't seem to be hitting the audience the right way. So why don't we try it from this angle instead?
Sure.
That excites me a lot more than saying, okay, no, this whole scene doesn't really work too much. Maybe we could try it from through the eyes of this person singing it. Or I that just feels a little bit
Out
too
of your depth.
far.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, a little bit too much for me to be honest. And so I'm fine in that pocket. Uh,
Mhm.
I mean, if I really wanted to push out a dream, I'd love to. I'm a big Marvel fan,
Oh,
and
wow.
if I've never done anything on screen, and if there was anything that if I could be involved in a Marvel film of some kind in the future,
Dream mate.
that would be a real dream. Yeah,
Yeah.
but who knows what the future may hold?
I know. It's a bit crazy, isn't it? Anything could happen.
Yes, yeah.
So for the people listening, a lot of the demographic of the people who listen to this podcast are people who would like to step into the industry themselves, still figuring out in levels in their training. What piece of what golden nugget would you give them advice into the industry that maybe they wouldn't hear from someone at college?
Um, Interesting, right? Yes. So I would. There's a few things, but the thing that pops to mind first and foremost, which I'm a realist in this industry. I would urge everyone to have. It sounds like it's kind of putting this industry down, but I don't mean it to sound this way. Have another passion too, and I mean
Yes.
that in the
So many
nicest
people
possible
say
way.
this.
Yeah, because I also have a passion for fitness. So it also, because this industry is so difficult in that there's a lot of rejection, it's really easy to get to a point of I need this. I need this because my almost as if my life doesn't have purpose without needing this show. And that's a really unhealthy way to look at going about this industry.
Sure.
And getting to a place where, like for myself, having fitness to fall back on, so I'm also a fitness instructor at a gym, that I also love that. So when I don't have performance work, I'm okay with what I have,
Mm.
and so it doesn't necessarily become a need. It becomes a I would like that,
Like a
but
bonus.
yeah, I would even go as far to say I would prefer if I got Phantom, for example. But if I didn't get it, I go, okay, that's a shame, but I'm happy,
Yeah.
and so uh, there was definitely a point early on in my career where I definitely did hit that point where I'd say, I need this job. And then I think the rejection then easily gets on top of you because there's so much of it, unfortunately. You audition for so many shows and you probably get 10% of your shows that you audition for. And that might not necessarily be something that people want to hear, but it's something that people need to hear
Yeah,
because it's a healthier way of it keeps the longevity of the industry, in my opinion.
definitely. And it's all about your
Yeah,
mindset at the end of the day.
exactly. Yeah, if you can find a way to be content with your position in the industry and not take things personally, it
Mm.
makes the journey so much more enjoyable.
Yeah, for sure. It's really
Yeah.
valuable knowledge. Thank you for that. The last question I always ask all of my podcast guests is if you could nominate someone to come and speak about their experience in the industry, impart their knowledge, and I'll actually reach out to them and try and get them on, who would that be?
Wow. Wow. Okay, yeah, if I could impart knowledge, if I could offer someone to impart their knowledge. Wow. Yeah, I've worked with so many people that I think have been a huge inspiration for me. So I can throw a couple of names out.
Go
I
for it.
I think that Jordan, who works on this show, is
Yes.
fantastic, who plays
Okay.
Scissorhands. I think
Yes.
they offer I've learned a lot from them on this show in terms of placement in the industry, sexuality, gender, speak of gender, all of this, and that's
Yes.
been something that I've been really quite naive and admittedly uneducated about. So it's been a real eye opener for me.
Mm.
In terms of the industry and other shows that I've been a part of, I've worked with I'd say someone. Do you mean like acting wise, or do you mean like maybe a director
No,
that I've
it could
worked
be,
with, or
yeah,
anyone?
directors, it could be anyone.
Okay, yeah. So the there's someone that I work with on Miss Saigon called Aaron Lambert, who's one of my very close friends, who also has a directing brain, but he's in Hamilton. He's been in Hamilton for the past, well, since it opened in London,
Wow.
and he's also a an agent as well, so he offers that kind of world too,
Great.
and he's directed a couple of productions up in Scotland too. So I really look up to him, and he is one of my absolute best friends too. So he's fantastic. And also another good friend of mine called Ed White, who I did Wicked with actually. So it was my first job that I did, and he was
Great.
our dance captain. But he's moved now into screen acting, and he's
Oh,
just
that's
recently been
interesting.
nominated for an award actually for a short film that he actually had to miss my birthday celebrations because he was nominated for an
Oh,
award. And I said to him, I went, if there's anything you're going to miss my birthday for, it's because you're nominated for an award. So
yeah.
it's all good. So that speaking about knowing a little bit more about that transition, someone who was very much on stage and has done dance captain work and musical theatre work to be able to then move to that side of transition so well. That's also really interesting.
Oh, I will definitely reach out to all three of those people because they sound very interesting. So thank you for those.
You're
Thank
very
you
welcome.
so much for joining me. It's been great to hear all about Scissorhands and to hear about your view on the industry. It's really interesting to get loads of different perspectives. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. It's really interesting. Thank
No
you.
worries. And thank you to everyone listening. We'll see you next week for another episode. Goodbye.
Okay.